Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Homecoming. Cole Morrison adjusted his prosthetic leg as the taxi pulled into the driveway of what used to be his sanctuary. 22 years of military service, 3 tours in Afghanistan, and a roadside bomb that took his right leg below the knee. All of it led to this moment. Christmas Eve, 2024. The house looked the same, but something felt different. The Christmas lights blinked cheerfully, mocking the darkness that had settled in his chest since the injury. Cole had been deployed for 18 months this last time. Before that, it was constant rotations, constant missions. He'd sent every paycheck home to Diana, his wife of 25 years, trusting her to manage their finances and raise their son Tyler. He'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, all for duty, honor, and family. The family he was about to see for the first time since losing his leg. Diana opened the door, and Cole searched her face for warmth, for the woman who used to write him love letters during his first deployment. Instead, he found cold politeness. "You're early," she said, not embracing him. Tyler's friends are still here. 23-year-old Tyler appeared behind her, taller now, wearing an expensive watch Cole didn't recognize. His son's eyes held something Cole had never seen before, contempt. "Dad." Tyler's greeting was flat, obligatory. The living room buzzed with Tyler's friends, young men and women Cole didn't recognize. They glanced at his military uniform, his prosthetic, and looked away quickly. Diana had prepared the house for a party, not a homecoming. Dinner was served at 8. Cole sat at the head of the table he'd built with his own hands 15 years ago, watching his family move around him like he was a stranger. Diana barely spoke, and Tyler's conversation focused on his new job at some tech startup, his girlfriend Madison, and his plans to move to California. "So, Tyler," Cole said, cutting into his prime rib, "tell me about this job. What exactly do you do?" Tyler exchanged a glance with Diana. "I'm in marketing. Social media campaigns, influencer partnerships. You wouldn't understand it." The dismissive tone hit Cole like a slap. He'd commanded men in life-or-death situations, had a master's degree in engineering, but his own son thought he was too stupid to understand marketing. "Try me," Cole said evenly. "Dad, it's complicated. You've been gone so long. Things have changed. Technology, culture, everything. You're kind of behind." Diana finally spoke. "Tyler's doing very well. He's making 6 figures already." Cole felt something cold settle in his stomach. 6 figures? From a startup? "Some people adapt," Tyler said. "Some people get left behind." The conversation died. Cole excused himself to his old study, finding it converted into Diana's craft room. His military commendations, photos from his service, certificates, all gone, replaced with scrapbooking supplies and romance novels. He returned to find dessert being served. Tyler was showing Madison something on his phone, both of them laughing. Diana was clearing plates with mechanical efficiency. "Son," Cole said, "I thought maybe tomorrow we could go to the range. I could teach you some proper shooting techniques." Tyler looked up, his face twisted with something ugly. "I don't think so, Dad." "Why not?" We used to do a lot of things. Before you decided the Army was more important than family." Cole set down his coffee cup carefully. "Everything I did was for this family." "Bullshit." Tyler's voice rose. The room fell silent. "You want to know what you did? You left us. For years and years, you just left. Mom had to raise me alone while you played soldier." "Tyler." Diana's voice held a warning, but not the kind Cole expected. It wasn't "don't hurt your father's feelings." It was "not here, not now." But Tyler was beyond caring. The alcohol, the audience, the years of resentment, it all came pouring out. "You sent money, sure. Like that made up for missing every important moment of my life. Every birthday, every game, every graduation. And now you come back broken, expecting us to just pretend you're the man of the house again." Cole stood slowly, his prosthetic clicking against the hardwood. "I served my country. I served you. Every sacrifice I made was your choice." Tyler slammed his hand on the table. "Nobody forced you to re-enlist. Nobody forced you to miss my childhood. You chose the Army over us every single time. That's not true. Tyler stood too, facing his father across the table. Isn't it? When I was 10 and broke my arm, where were you? When I had pneumonia at 12, where were you? When I graduated high school, where were you? Each question was a knife. Cole had been in Iraq, then Afghanistan, then training exercises in North Carolina. Always somewhere else. When Mom was crying herself to sleep every night for years, where were you? The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Cole looked at Diana, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. I was protecting this family, this country. Everything I did, everything you did was selfish. Tyler's voice dropped to a deadly quiet. You got to play hero while we dealt with real life. Well, guess what? We don't need your protection anymore. We don't need your money anymore. And we sure as hell don't need you. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Cole looked around the table at the faces staring back at him. His son's friends watched like this was entertainment. Diana sat frozen, her hands clenched in her lap. Madison looked uncomfortable but fascinated. Tyler, Cole said softly, I know I wasn't perfect, but I'm here now. I want to make things right. Tyler laughed, a bitter sound that cut through Cole's heart. Make things right? You think showing up broken and expecting gratitude makes things right? You want to know what would make things right? He leaned forward, his eyes blazing with years of accumulated rage. You're a burden. Get out of our house. The words hit Cole like physical blows. He looked at his wife, the woman he'd loved for over 2 decades, waiting for her to defend him, to tell Tyler he'd gone too far. Diana looked at her hands and said nothing. This is my house, Cole said quietly. I built it. I paid for it. With what? Army paychecks. Tyler sneered. Mom's been handling the finances while you were gone. Things change. People move on. Cole's training kicked in, the cold assessment of a tactical situation. Something was very wrong here. Tyler's confidence, Diana's silence, the expensive watch, the casual mention of 6-figure salaries from a startup. Get out, Tyler repeated. Go find some VFW hall to cry in. We're done pretending to be your family. Cole looked one more time at Diana. She still wouldn't meet his eyes. Without another word, Cole walked to the closet, retrieved his old duffel bag, and packed his few belongings. 25 years of marriage, a lifetime of service, and it all fit in one bag. As he reached the door, Diana finally spoke. Cole. He turned, hoping for something, anything that resembled the woman he'd married. Your disability checks, she said quietly. I'll have them forwarded wherever you end up. Cole nodded once and walked out into the December night. Chapter 2. The Neighbor's Farm. The Greyhound bus wheezed to a stop at the intersection of County Road 47 and Old Mill Road at 3 a.m. Cole was the only passenger getting off in the middle of nowhere, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder and his prosthetic aching from the 6-hour ride. The bus driver looked at him with pity as he hobbled down the steps. You sure about this, soldier? Ain't nothing out here but farmland and coyotes. Cole nodded and watched the bus disappear into the darkness, leaving him alone under a canopy of stars he'd almost forgotten existed. The December air bit through his jacket, but the cold felt clean after the suffocating atmosphere of his former home. Frank Whitmore's farm was 3 miles down Old Mill Road. Cole had met Frank during his first leave after basic training 26 years ago. Frank was a Vietnam vet who'd taken one look at the young soldier and offered him a job during his leave periods. Cole had spent countless hours on this farm, learning about life from a man who understood the weight of service. The walk gave Cole time to think. Tyler's words echoed in his head, but underneath the pain was something else, questions. How was Tyler making 6 figures at 23? When had Diana become so cold? Why had his son's resentment felt so prepared, like a speech he'd been rehearsing? Frank's farmhouse sat at the end of a gravel driveway, a warm yellow glow emanating from the kitchen window. Cole had called from the bus station, and Frank had simply said, "Come home, son." Before Cole could knock, the door opened. Frank Whitmore stood there, 68 years old and still broad-shouldered, his weathered face creasing into a sad smile. Jesus, Cole, look at you. Frank's embrace was everything Diana's should have been, warm, welcoming, real. Cole found himself fighting back tears he'd been holding since the bomb went off. Come on, coffee's hot. The kitchen smelled like bacon and wood smoke. Frank poured 2 cups of coffee and gestured to the worn wooden table where they'd shared hundreds of conversations over the years. Want to talk about it? Cole told him everything. The deployment, the injury, the homecoming, Tyler's explosion, Diana's silence. Frank listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each detail. When Cole finished, Frank was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. "Cole," he said finally, "there's something I've been waiting to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago, but I kept hoping I was wrong." Cole felt ice form in his veins. "What?" Frank stood and walked to the window, looking out at his fields. "You remember Rick Lawson?" The name hit Cole like a physical blow. Rick Lawson, his best friend from his first unit, his best man at his wedding, Tyler's godfather. They'd served together for 6 years before Rick left the Army to pursue civilian opportunities. "Rick's been coming around," Frank said quietly. "Started about 8 months ago. At first, I thought maybe he was just checking on Diana while you were deployed, being a good friend." Cole's mouth went dry. "At first, then I started noticing patterns. His truck at your house when Tyler was at work. Staying overnight. Diana going to book club 3 nights a week, but her car ending up at his apartment complex." The room tilted. Cole gripped the edge of the table. "I'm sorry, son. I watched them together at the grocery store last month. The way they looked at each other, that wasn't friendship." Cole's mind raced through memories, recontextualizing everything. Rick's frequent calls during his deployment. Diana's increasing emotional distance over the past year. Tyler's sudden hostility. "There's more," Frank said, his voice heavy. "About 3 weeks ago, I was at Murphy's bar. Rick was there, drunk, bragging to some woman about his new lifestyle. Said he'd found a way to live like a king without working for it." "What did he mean?" Frank turned back to Cole, his eyes filled with regret. "He said he had a sugar mama, a military wife whose husband was too stupid to notice what was happening to his own bank accounts." The words hit Cole like another roadside bomb. Everything clicked into place. Diana's control over the finances. Tyler's expensive lifestyle. The 6-figure job that didn't make sense. "He's been stealing from me," Cole said quietly. "That's what it sounds like." Rick mentioned something about Tyler being finally ready to choose sides and how the kid was getting rewarded for loyalty. Cole felt something inside him break. Not his heart, but something deeper. The last vestige of the trusting man he used to be. In its place rose something cold and calculating, forged by years of combat and sharpened by betrayal. "Frank," he said, his voice deadly calm, "I need to know everything. Every detail you've seen, every conversation you've overheard, every person who's been complicit in this." Frank studied his face and saw something that made him sit back down. "You're not thinking of doing something stupid, are you?" Cole smiled, and Frank felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't the smile of the earnest young soldier he'd mentored. This was the smile of a predator. "Stupid? No. I'm thinking of doing something very, very smart." Chapter 3. The Architecture of Revenge. Cole spent the next 3 days at Frank's farm, but he wasn't recuperating. He was planning. Frank's old study became a war room, complete with a whiteboard covered in names, dates, and connections. Cole's military training in intelligence gathering and operational planning finally had a personal application. Frank had been more observant than Cole initially realized. The old farmer had kept detailed mental notes of Rick's visits, Diana's schedule changes, and even Tyler's sudden lifestyle improvements. More importantly, Frank had photos. "Started taking these about 2 months ago," Frank explained, showing Cole pictures on his phone. "Figured you'd want proof if it came to that." The photos were devastating. Rick's truck in Cole's driveway at odd hours. Diana and Rick holding hands at a restaurant in the next town over. Tyler and Rick shaking hands outside a BMW dealership. Rick apparently co-signing for Tyler's new car. But the most damning photo was from just last week. Diana, Rick, and Tyler at what appeared to be a Christmas shopping trip, all 3 of them laughing together like a family. "They replaced me," Cole said quietly, studying the image. "While I was fighting for my country, they replaced me." Frank poured himself a whiskey. "What are you going to do?" Cole had been asking himself the same question. His first instinct was violence, 22 years of military training had given him numerous ways to eliminate threats. But Rick, Diana, and Tyler weren't enemy combatants. They were something worse. They were traitors who needed to understand the consequences of betrayal. "I'm going to destroy them," Cole said simply. But not quickly. They spent years planning this betrayal, executing it piece by piece. They deserve the same consideration. Cole opened his laptop. An old military-issued device Frank had helped him recover from storage, and began his reconnaissance. Tyler's social media painted a picture of sudden wealth, expensive restaurants, designer clothes, weekend trips to Las Vegas, all funded by money that should have been building Cole's family's future. Rick's digital footprint was more interesting. His LinkedIn showed a series of failed business ventures over the past 5 years. His Facebook revealed mounting debts, 2 divorces, and increasingly desperate posts about needing new opportunities. Until 8 months ago, when suddenly Rick was posting about his new consulting business and finally catching a break. Diana was harder to trace online, but bank records would tell the real story. Cole had maintained joint accounts, and as a disabled veteran, he had certain legal protections regarding his benefits and compensation. If Diana had been moving money without his knowledge, there would be consequences. But Cole wanted more than legal consequences. He wanted them to feel the same betrayal, the same loss, the same humiliation they'd inflicted on him. On the 4th morning, Cole made his first call to Marcus Hamilton, his old commanding officer who now worked as a private investigator in Virginia. "Cole Morrison, you son of a bitch." Marcus's voice boomed through the phone. "I heard about the IED. How are you holding up?" "I've been better." "Marcus, I need a favor." "A big one." Cole explained the situation in clinical detail. Marcus listened without comment until the end. "Jesus Christ, Cole. Your own family." "Former family," Cole corrected. "I need you to run complete background checks on Rick Lawson and my wife Diana. Financial records, communication logs, everything you can legally access. I also need surveillance on all 3 of them for the next 2 weeks." "Cole, this sounds like what? Like a man protecting his assets from theft? Like a veteran ensuring his disability benefits aren't being misused? Everything I'm asking for is legal, Marcus." There was a pause. "What aren't you telling me?" Cole smiled grimly. "I'm not telling you about Phase 2. But don't worry. You'll have plausible deniability." Marcus sighed. "I'll have preliminary reports by tomorrow night. Financial deep dive will take a week." "Cole, be careful. Whatever you're planning, just remember you've got a future to think about." "No, Marcus. I had a future. They stole it. Now I just have a mission." After hanging up, Cole turned to Frank, who'd been listening from the kitchen doorway. "I need to establish a base of operations," Cole said. "Somewhere I can work without being seen. Do you still own that hunting cabin up on Bear Mountain?" Frank nodded slowly. "I haven't been up there in 2 years, but it's got power and water. About 15 miles from your old house. Good sight lines of the valley." "Perfect. I also need to make some purchases. Equipment, vehicles, communication gear. But everything has to be untraceable." "Cole, you're scaring me a little." Cole stood, his prosthetic clicking against the floor. For the first time since Christmas dinner, he felt like himself again. Not the wounded veteran limping home to an ungrateful family, but Colonel Cole Morrison, a man who had never lost a mission. "Frank, for 22 years, I protected people who couldn't protect themselves. I eliminated threats to innocent lives. I served with honor and integrity." He walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful farmland that would soon become his staging area. "But those people in my house, they're not innocent. They're enemy combatants who declared war on my life, my service, and my sacrifice. And I'm going to treat them exactly like what they are." Frank felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December weather. The young man he'd mentored had returned, but he'd brought something back from the war, something dark and precise and utterly unforgiving. "What do you need me to do?" Cole turned back to him, and Frank saw the cold calculation of a professional soldier planning an operation. "I need you to be my eyes and ears in town. Keep watching them, keep taking pictures. And Frank," Cole's smile was sharp as a blade, "I need you to forget everything I just told you. As far as anyone knows, I'm a broken-down veteran hiding in the woods, too ashamed to face his family. Let them think that, Cole thought as he began drawing up plans for his new life. Let them think I'm weak and defeated. They were about to learn the difference between a defeated man and a tactical withdrawal. Chapter 4. Intelligence Gathering. The hunting cabin on Bear Mountain had been transformed into something that would have impressed Cole's old intelligence unit. Maps of the local area covered one wall, with pins marking Diana's work route, Rick's apartment, Tyler's new job, and the various locations where Frank had photographed them together. A second wall displayed financial documents, communication logs, and surveillance photos. Marcus Hamilton had delivered more than promised. Diana had been systematically draining Cole's accounts for over a year, transferring money to Rick through a series of shell companies. Tyler's startup job was fictional. He was actually being paid through one of Rick's dummy corporations, essentially receiving an allowance for betraying his father. The scope of the theft was staggering. Over $200,000 in combat pay, disability compensation, and veteran benefits had been redirected. They'd even taken out loans against Cole's military pension. It was sophisticated financial fraud that would have required months of planning. But Cole had found something even more damaging than theft: insurance policies. Diana had taken out 3 separate life insurance policies on Cole over the past 18 months, all with Rick as the secondary beneficiary after her. Combined with the existing military death benefits, Cole's demise would net them over $2 million. They weren't just stealing from me, Cole told Frank over dinner. They were planning to profit from my death. Frank set down his fork. That's attempted murder. Not quite, but it's conspiracy to commit fraud at minimum. They clearly expected my deployment to be permanent, one way or another. Cole's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. New surveillance photos. Check your email. The photos were from that afternoon. Diana and Rick at a jewelry store, looking at engagement rings. Tyler with them, clearly giving his approval. They weren't even waiting for divorce papers. Cole studied the images with clinical detachment. They think I'm neutralized, broken, too damaged and ashamed to fight back. He opened his laptop and began typing. Over the next hour, he composed 3 different documents: a detailed financial crime report for the FBI's white-collar crime division, a military fraud complaint for the Army's criminal investigation division, and a civil lawsuit alleging theft, fraud, and conspiracy. But Cole didn't send any of them. Legal remedies would take years and might not even recover his money. Diana and Rick would hire lawyers, claim misunderstandings, drag proceedings out until Cole's resources were exhausted. No, Cole wanted something more immediate and more devastating. He opened a new document and began planning what he privately called Operation Family Values. The next morning, Cole drove into town for the first time since Christmas. His destination was Riverside Community Bank, where Diana worked as a loan officer. He parked across the street and waited, watching through binoculars as his wife went through her daily routine. Diana looked happy. She smiled at co-workers, laughed at someone's jokes, and seemed completely unburdened by guilt. It was like watching a stranger wearing his wife's face. At 12:30, Diana left for lunch. Instead of going to her usual restaurant, she drove to Rick's apartment complex. Cole followed at a distance, documenting everything. The reunion between Diana and Rick was passionate and public. They didn't even bother closing the curtains as they fell into bed together. Cole photographed it all through a telephoto lens, his face emotionless behind the camera. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. This was about evidence. That afternoon, Cole visited his old bank branch. Jennifer Walsh, the branch manager, had known Cole for 15 years. Colonel Morrison, oh my God, we heard about your injury. How are you doing? Cole played the role of the wounded veteran perfectly. Humble, grateful, slightly overwhelmed by civilian life. I'm adjusting. Jennifer, I need to understand my account activity while I was deployed. Diana was handling everything, but I want to make sure I understand our financial position now that I'm back. Jennifer's smile faltered slightly. Of course. Let me pull up your accounts. As she reviewed the records, Cole watched her face change from confusion to concern to something approaching alarm. Colonel Morrison, she said carefully, I think you need to speak with our fraud prevention department. Cole leaned forward. Why? Is there a problem? There have been unusual transfers. Large amounts moved to accounts I don't recognize. Loans taken against your pension. Changes to beneficiaries on several policies. Jennifer looked genuinely distressed. Sir, if you didn't authorize these transactions. I didn't authorize anything, Cole said quietly. I trusted my wife to manage our finances while I was serving our country. Jennifer's face went pale. Oh God, Colonel Morrison, I'm so sorry. We should have flagged some of these transactions for review. Cole reached across the desk and patted her hand gently. You weren't the one who betrayed me, Jennifer. Can you help me document everything? For the next 2 hours, Jennifer walked Cole through every suspicious transaction. The pattern was clear. Diana had been embezzling systematically, using her position at the bank to avoid scrutiny. She'd even convinced Jennifer that the transfers were for investment opportunities that Cole had discussed with her. She said you were planning to start a consulting business when you returned, Jennifer explained. She showed me what looked like your signature on authorization forms. Cole examined the forged signatures. They were good. Diana had been practicing. As they wrapped up, Jennifer asked the question Cole had been waiting for. What are you going to do? Cole looked out the window at the town where he'd planned to spend his retirement, the place where his wife was sleeping with his best friend while his son celebrated his father's absence. I'm going to remind them that they messed with the wrong soldier. That evening, back at the cabin, Cole spread out his growing collection of evidence. Financial fraud, adultery, conspiracy, identity theft. He had enough to destroy all 3 of them legally. But Cole had spent too many years in tactical operations to be satisfied with legal destruction. He wanted psychological warfare. He wanted them to understand what it felt like to have everything they valued ripped away piece by piece. He picked up his phone and dialed a number from memory. Danny's Electronics, Danny speaking. Danny, it's Cole Morrison. I need some specialized equipment. Danny Pierce had served under Cole in Afghanistan and now ran a security consulting business that served clients who valued discretion. Colonel, heard you were stateside. What can I do for you? I need surveillance gear. Top-tier stuff. And I need it installed without anyone knowing it was ever there. There was a pause. Cole, you sure you want to go down this road? Cole smiled grimly. Danny, I've been down roads you can't imagine. This is just another mission. When do you need it done? Cole looked at his tactical calendar. Diana worked late on Thursdays. Tyler had a standing date with Madison on Friday nights. Rick played poker with his buddies every Saturday. Thursday night. I'll send you the address. Phase 2 of Operation Family Values was about to begin. Chapter 5. Psychological Warfare. Thursday night's installation went flawlessly. Danny Pierce and his team entered Cole's former home while Diana was at her late inventory meeting, actually dinner and sex with Rick, and Tyler was supposedly studying at the library, actually drinking with friends at a bar downtown. In 90 minutes, they installed 14 micro cameras, 8 audio recording devices, and a complete digital monitoring system. Everything streams to this mobile unit, Danny explained, handing Cole a military-grade tablet. Audio, video, internet traffic, phone calls. If it happens in that house, you'll know about it. Cole tested the system, watching Diana return home alone at 11:47 p.m. She moved through the house like she owned it completely, which, legally, she probably did now. She even walked past Cole's old study, now her craft room, without a glance. One more thing, Cole said. I need you to set up a meeting. With who? Rick Lawson. Tell him you represent a private military contractor looking for consultants with his background. Big money, immediate start, but he needs to come alone to discuss classification issues. Danny raised an eyebrow. Cole, I'm not going to hurt him. I just want to have a conversation. Where? Cole smiled. The Warehouse District, Building 47, Saturday at 8 p.m. Building 47 was a defunct manufacturing facility that Cole had scouted earlier. Isolated, soundproof, with multiple exit routes. Perfect for the kind of conversation he had in mind. Friday and Saturday brought a wealth of intelligence through the surveillance system. Cole watched his family's routine with the detached interest of a predator studying prey. Tyler spent Friday night with Madison, but not studying. They were planning their move to California, funded by Tyler's inheritance, money Tyler believed would come from forcing Cole out of the family. Madison was pregnant, a detail Tyler hadn't shared with anyone else yet. Diana's Saturday was more revealing. She spent the morning on the phone with a divorce attorney, discussing the fastest way to dissolve her marriage to a mentally unstable veteran who had threatened the family. She was building a narrative that would paint Cole as dangerous and unfit, justifying her theft as protection for Tyler. The surveillance also revealed something else. Rick wasn't just stealing money. He was documenting everything, taking photos of financial records, recording conversations with Diana about Cole's erratic behavior and violent tendencies. Rick was building an insurance policy against Cole's return, evidence that could be used to have Cole committed or arrested if he became a problem. By Saturday evening, Cole had everything he needed for Phase 3. But first, he had a meeting to attend. Building 47 sat in darkness as Cole arrived 30 minutes early. He'd spent the afternoon preparing, floodlights positioned for optimal psychological impact, recording equipment to capture every word, and a few props that would help make his point. Rick arrived precisely at 8 p.m., driving his new BMW, the one purchased with Cole's combat pay. He entered the building cautiously, calling out for Mr. Peterson, the fictional contractor Danny had impersonated. "Mr. Peterson? It's Rick Lawson. You said Building 47. Cole triggered the floodlights, illuminating the center of the warehouse. Rick spun around, temporarily blinded. "Hello, Rick." Cole's voice echoed off the concrete walls as he stepped into the light. Rick's face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally a desperate attempt at normalcy. "Cole, Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing here? I thought I was meeting some contractor about a consulting job." "You are," Cole said quietly. "I'm consulting on a very specific problem." Rick's hand moved toward his pocket, probably reaching for his phone. Cole's voice stopped him. "I wouldn't. You'll want both hands free for this conversation." Cole began walking in a slow circle around Rick, staying just outside the light. 26 years we've known each other, Rick. Best man at my wedding. Godfather to my son. I trusted you with my life in Afghanistan. Cole, listen. I trusted you with my family while I was deployed. Asked you to check on Diana and Tyler. Make sure they were okay. Cole's voice remained conversational, almost friendly. You did check on Diana, didn't you? Rick's face was pale under the harsh lights. Cole, I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. You're probably going to tell me it just happened. That you and Diana fell in love. That these things sometimes occur. That you never meant to hurt me. Cole stopped directly in front of Rick. But that would be a lie, wouldn't it? He pulled out a tablet and showed Rick the financial records. This took planning. Months of it. You didn't just steal my wife, Rick. You stole my life. Rick tried to straighten, to project confidence. Diana was lonely, Cole. You were never there. She needed someone who... Cole's fist connected with Rick's solar plexus, dropping him to his knees. It was a precise strike, calculated to disable without causing permanent damage. Wrong answer, Cole said calmly. Let me tell you what really happened. You've been struggling financially for years. 2 divorces, failed businesses, mounting debts. You saw an opportunity when I deployed, a woman with access to a military salary and a son who resented his father's absence. Rick gasped for air, unable to respond. You seduced my wife systematically, made her feel special, appreciated, loved. Then you convinced her that I didn't deserve her loyalty. You turned my son against me by playing the fun uncle while painting me as the absent father. And finally, you stole my money by making Diana your accomplice. Cole crouched down to Rick's level. But here's what you didn't plan for. I came home, and I'm not the same man who left. Rick found his voice. You can't prove anything. Cole smiled and showed him another tablet, this one displaying real-time footage from the surveillance system in Cole's house. Can't I? Right now, I'm watching Diana pack clothes for what she thinks will be a romantic weekend with you. I've recorded every phone call, every financial transaction, every moment of your pathetic little affair. Rick's face went white. That's illegal. Is it? It's my house, my accounts, my wife. Funny thing about surveillance laws, they don't protect criminals very well. Cole stood and began pacing again. Here's what's going to happen, Rick. You're going to end this relationship with my wife. You're going to disappear from my son's life. And you're going to make restitution for every penny you stole. And if I don't, Cole gestured to the walls around them. Then I'll use my very particular set of skills to make your life a living hell. I'll expose your fraud to every potential employer in the region. I'll send your recorded confessions to the IRS, the FBI, and the local police. I'll make sure everyone knows you're a predator who targets military wives while their husbands are deployed. Rick tried to stand, his legs shaky. Diana won't believe you. Tyler hates you. They chose me. Cole's smile turned predatory. Did they? Let's find out. He pulled out his phone and called Diana. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm with anticipation. Hi, honey. Are you almost ready for our weekend? Cole put the phone on speaker. Diana, it's me. The silence on the other end was deafening. Cole, why do you have Rick's phone? Because Rick and I are having conversation about my marriage, my money, and my future. Would you like to join us? Cole could hear Diana's panicked breathing through the phone. Diana, Rick called out, finding his voice. Don't come here. Just hang up. But Cole was already talking. Diana, ask Rick about the life insurance policies. Ask him about the forged signatures. Ask him about the plans he's been making for after my accident. The phone clicked off. Cole smiled at Rick. I think she'll be here soon. She needs to understand what kind of man she's been sleeping with. Rick's composure finally cracked. You're insane. You can't just. Can't what? Defend my family? Protect my assets? Stop criminals from stealing from a disabled veteran. Cole's voice hardened. You chose to make me your enemy, Rick. Now you got to find out what that means. In the distance, they could hear a car approaching fast. Chapter 6. The Reckoning begins. Diana's BMW screeched into the warehouse parking lot 23 minutes later. Cole had spent the time methodically explaining to Rick exactly how much evidence he possessed and precisely what criminal charges his former friend was facing. Rick sat on the concrete floor, his arrogance replaced by growing terror as he understood the scope of Cole's preparation. Diana burst through the warehouse door like a woman possessed, her face flushed with panic and rage. What the hell is this, Cole? Some kind of kidnapping. Cole remained in the shadows beyond the floodlights. Hello, Diana. Thank you for joining us. I thought it was time we all had an honest conversation about our marriage. Diana helped Rick to his feet, positioning herself between the two men. Rick, are you hurt? Did he threaten you? Threaten him? Cole laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Diana, I've been watching you two for weeks. I know about the money, the fraud, the forged signatures. I know about the life insurance policies. I know everything. Diana's face cycled through denial, defiance, and fear before settling on a desperate attempt at manipulation. Cole, you're sick. This deployment, your injury, it's changed you. You need help. Do I? Let's see. Cole stepped into the light, holding a thick folder. July 15th, you transferred $15,000 from my combat pay account to Rick's consulting company. August 3rd, you forged my signature on a loan against my pension. September 12th, you took out a $500,000 life insurance policy with Rick as secondary beneficiary. With each date, Diana's face grew paler. October 1st, you met with a divorce attorney to discuss having me declared mentally incompetent. October 15th, you and Rick went ring shopping. November 2nd, you convinced Tyler to participate in your scheme by promising him a trust fund. Cole opened the folder and began spreading photographs across a nearby table. Should I continue? Because I have documentation for every theft, every lie, every moment of your betrayal. Rick found his voice. Diana, we need to leave. Now. But Diana was staring at the photographs. Pictures of her and Rick together, bank records, forged documents, surveillance footage from their most intimate moments. How long? She whispered. How long what? How long have I known? About a week. How long have I been planning my response? Since the moment you chose to remain silent while my son called me a burden and threw me out of my own house. Diana's mask finally slipped, revealing the cold calculation underneath. That house isn't yours anymore, Cole. I've been maintaining it, improving it, while you played soldier. You abandoned us. I serve my country. You serve yourself. Diana's voice rose to a shriek. You chose the army over us every time. You missed Tyler's childhood, our marriage, everything that mattered. We deserved better. Cole stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You deserved better than a man who sacrificed his body for his family's security? Better than someone who sent every paycheck home? Better than a husband who trusted you completely? We deserve someone who is actually here. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Cole nodded slowly. You're right. You did deserve someone who was here. But instead of asking for what you needed, you chose theft and betrayal. Instead of honest conversation, you chose fraud and conspiracy. Instead of divorce, you chose to systematically destroy me. Rick stepped forward, trying to regain control. Cole, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can work something out. Divide the assets fairly. Set up support payments. Cole's laugh cut him off. Support payments? Rick, you just admitted to financial fraud in front of witnesses. Diana just confessed to forgery and conspiracy. You think you're in a position to negotiate. Diana's desperation turned to rage. You can't prove anything that will stick in court. It's our word against yours, and you're a damaged veteran with PTSD who just assaulted Rick and dragged me to an abandoned warehouse. Cole smiled and held up his phone. Actually, you've both been confessing on camera for the past 30 minutes. This entire conversation is being recorded and live-streamed to my attorney, my bank, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The color drained from both their faces. You see, unlike you two, I plan my operations carefully. Marcus Hamilton, you remember Marcus, Diana? He was at our wedding. He's a federal investigator now. He's been watching this stream with a team of prosecutors. Every word you've said tonight is admissible evidence. Rick grabbed Diana's arm. We're leaving. Right now. But Cole had moved to block the exit. No, you're not. We're not finished. Diana pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Please do. Ask for Detective Rivera. She's expecting your call. Diana hesitated, something in Cole's tone stopping her. You see, while you were planning your romantic weekend, I was filing criminal complaints. Fraud, theft, conspiracy, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Rivera's been reviewing the evidence all day. Cole's smile turned predatory. But I'm not just interested in criminal justice. I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything that matters to you. He pulled out another phone and showed them a real-time video feed. Tyler was at his apartment with Madison, both of them packing for their planned move to California. Tyler doesn't know about tonight yet. He still thinks you're getting away with this. He's telling Madison about the inheritance he's going to receive when you divorce his pathetic father. Diana lunged forward, trying to grab the phone. You stay away from my son. Cole easily avoided her. Your son? Diana, Tyler hasn't been your son for months. He's been Rick's recruit, Rick's accomplice. You turned my child into a criminal. The weight of her actions seemed to hit Diana all at once. She sank to her knees, sobbing. I never meant for it to go this far. I was so lonely, Cole. You were never here, and Rick made me feel alive again. Cole knelt beside his wife of 25 years, his voice surprisingly gentle. I know you were lonely. I know I made mistakes. But Diana, you could have talked to me. You could have asked for what you needed. Instead, you chose to destroy everything we built together. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. For a moment, Cole felt a flicker of the love he'd once had for this woman. Then he remembered Tyler's words at Christmas dinner, and the flicker died. I know you are, but sorry doesn't undo the betrayal. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I lost with my son. Sorry doesn't return the money you stole or repair the trust you shattered. Cole stood and looked down at his broken wife and her pathetic lover. You wanted me gone, so I left. You wanted to replace me, so you tried. You wanted my money, so you took it. But what you didn't want was for me to fight back. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the empty warehouse. Tomorrow morning, you'll both be arrested. Your assets will be frozen pending investigation. Tyler will learn that his trust fund was purchased with stolen money, making him an accessory to federal crimes. Cole paused at the door and turned back one final time. You thought you were playing with a broken soldier. You were wrong. You were playing with someone who spent 22 years learning how to eliminate enemies. Cole, please, Diana called out. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out, be a family again. Cole's expression didn't change. Diana, you stopped being my family the moment you chose him over me. And I don't forgive traitors. He walked into the night, leaving them alone with the consequences of their choices and the growing sound of approaching sirens. Chapter 7. The Dominoes Fall. The arrest began at dawn. Cole watched from his cabin as FBI vehicles surrounded his former home, where Diana and Rick had returned after their warehouse confrontation. Through his surveillance system, he could see Diana frantically trying to destroy evidence while Rick attempted to contact his lawyer. By 6:47 a.m., both were in federal custody. Tyler's arrest occurred at his apartment, where he was still packing for California. Cole watched through the apartment complex's security cameras as his son was led away in handcuffs, his pregnant girlfriend Madison screaming questions that no one answered. The local news picked up the story by noon. Military wife and lover charged in elaborate fraud scheme against disabled veteran. Cole's phone rang constantly with reporters wanting his story, but he declined all interviews. This wasn't about public sympathy. This was about justice. Marcus Hamilton called with updates throughout the day. Diana's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal, Marcus reported. She's claiming diminished capacity due to emotional distress from your deployment. Rick's attorney is trying to paint him as a victim of Diana's manipulation. And Tyler's a different story. His lawyer is arguing he was a minor when some of this started, that he didn't understand the implications of what his mother was doing. Cole felt nothing at the mention of his son's legal troubles. Tyler had made his choice at Christmas dinner. What about restitution? Full restitution is unlikely through criminal proceedings, but the civil suits will be devastating. Between the three of them, they're looking at losing everything they have plus significant additional judgments. Cole hung up and returned to his planning. The legal system would handle the criminal aspects, but Cole wasn't finished with them personally. That evening, Cole drove to the county jail where Diana was being held pending bond hearing. He'd called ahead, requesting a visit as her husband. The guards, recognizing his military service and knowing the basics of his case, were more accommodating than usual. Diana looked haggard in her orange jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance destroyed by 12 hours in custody. She sat across from Cole at the metal table, separated by reinforced glass, speaking through the monitored phone system. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would. I wanted to see you one last time before the divorce proceedings begin." Diana's face crumpled. "Cole, please. I know I made terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. We've been together for 25 years. "We were together for 24 years, Cole corrected. "You ended our marriage when you decided to steal from me and replace me with Rick. I never wanted to replace you. I needed someone who was there." Cole studied his wife's face, seeing for the first time how much she'd changed. The woman he'd married had been strong, independent, capable of handling his deployments with grace. This woman was weak, manipulative, willing to destroy everything rather than admit her needs. "Diana, if you had told me you were lonely, I would have taken early retirement. If you had said you needed more support, I would have found a way to provide it. If you had asked for help, I would have moved heaven and earth to give it to you." Tears streamed down Diana's face. I know that now. But it felt like you loved the Army more than us." "I served the Army. I loved you. There's a difference." Cole leaned forward, his voice hard. "But instead of communication, you chose betrayal. Instead of trust, you chose theft. And worst of all, you turned my son against me. Tyler was angry about your absence. I didn't create that. No, but you fed it. You nurtured it. You weaponized it against me." Cole's eyes were cold as winter steel. A good mother would have helped Tyler understand sacrifice and service. "You taught him that betrayal is acceptable if you feel justified." Diana sobbed into her hands. "What do you want from me, Cole? What can I do to fix this?" Cole stood, preparing to leave. "You can serve your sentence with dignity. You can accept responsibility for your choices. And you can stay away from me for the rest of your life." "Cole, please. I love you." He turned back one final time. "Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't conspire. What you felt for me wasn't love, Diana. It was possession. And when possession becomes inconvenient, it becomes betrayal." Cole left his wife crying in the visiting room and drove to his next appointment. The county prosecutor's office was busy with evening shift changes, but District Attorney Patricia Kemp had agreed to meet with Cole personally. Patricia was a veteran herself, and the case had caught her attention immediately. Colonel Morrison, first let me say how sorry I am about what you've endured. This kind of betrayal of a service member is particularly egregious. Thank you. I wanted to discuss the prosecution strategy. Patricia opened a thick file. We're pursuing maximum sentences for all 3 defendants. The financial fraud alone carries up to 20 years federal time. Add in the conspiracy charges, identity theft, and attempted insurance fraud, and we're looking at life-changing consequences. What about Tyler? Patricia's expression darkened. Your son is 23 years old. He knew exactly what he was doing when he participated in this scheme. The fact that it was against his own father makes it worse, not better. Cole nodded approvingly. I want to make something clear. I'm not interested in mercy for any of them. They spent over a year planning and executing this betrayal. They deserve to face the full consequences of their choices. Even your wife and son? Cole's expression didn't waver. Especially my wife and son. They had the greatest obligation to protect me, and they chose to destroy me instead. Patricia studied Cole's face. Most victims want some form of reconciliation with family members. Most victims haven't spent 22 years learning that betrayal, left unpunished, only leads to more betrayal. Cole stood to leave. I want them to understand that actions have consequences. I want other military families to see that this kind of betrayal won't be tolerated. And I want these 3 specific people to spend the rest of their lives regretting the day they decided to steal from a soldier. As Cole drove back to the cabin, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Dad, please. I need to talk to you. I'm sorry. Tyler. Cole read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Tyler had called him a burden and told him to get out of their house. Now Tyler was facing federal prison and wanted his father's forgiveness. But Cole Morrison didn't forgive traitors. He eliminated them. Chapter 8. No Mercy. 3 weeks later, Cole sat in the federal courthouse as Diana, Rick, and Tyler entered their guilty pleas. The evidence against them had been so overwhelming that their attorneys had advised against going to trial. Diana received 7 years for financial fraud and conspiracy. Rick got 12 years for orchestrating the scheme and his prior criminal history. Tyler, despite his lawyer's arguments about his age, received 5 years as an adult co-conspirator. Cole felt nothing as he watched his former family led away in shackles. No satisfaction, no regret, no vindication, just the cold completion of a successful mission. Madison, Tyler's pregnant girlfriend, approached Cole outside the courthouse. She was crying, her hands protectively covering her belly. Mr. Morrison, please. Tyler made mistakes, but he's going to be a father. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive him? Cole looked at this young woman who was about to raise his grandchild alone and felt the first flicker of emotion he'd experienced in weeks. But it wasn't sympathy. Tyler chose to betray me for money. He called me a burden and threw me out of my own home. He participated in stealing from a disabled veteran who gave everything for his country. Cole's voice was calm but implacable. Actions have consequences. Tyler is learning that lesson now. But the baby is innocent. Tyler isn't. If you need support, apply for government assistance. If you need help, contact veterans organizations. But don't expect mercy from the man your boyfriend helped destroy. Cole walked away, leaving Madison sobbing on the courthouse steps. That evening, Cole received an unexpected visitor at Frank's farm. Detective Rivera stood at the front door, her face serious. Colonel Morrison, we need to talk. Frank let her in, and they sat around the kitchen table with coffee. Rivera opened a file folder. We've been investigating some irregularities in your case, she began. The surveillance equipment in your former home, the warehouse meeting, the financial investigations, everything was perfectly legal, but remarkably sophisticated for a civilian operation. Cole waited for her to continue. Marcus Hamilton's background checks were more thorough than most federal investigations. Danny Pierce's surveillance installation was flawless. And your financial forensics were better than what our white-collar crime unit usually produces. Rivera leaned forward. Colonel, did you have help with this operation? Federal help. Cole sipped his coffee calmly. Detective, I spent 22 years in military intelligence. I have friends in various government agencies who were outraged that criminals were targeting a disabled veteran. If they provided assistance in exposing federal crimes, I can't imagine why that would be a problem. It's not a problem. It's impressive. But it also raises questions about your intentions going forward. My intentions? Your wife and her lover are in federal prison. Your son is facing years behind bars. You've recovered most of your stolen money through asset forfeiture. Justice has been served. Rivera closed the file. But I get the feeling you're not finished. Cole smiled slightly. Detective, what else would I do to them? They're already facing the consequences of their actions. I don't know. But in 20 years of police work, I've learned to recognize when someone has more plans brewing. You've been too calm, too controlled, too prepared for everything that's happened. Frank shifted uncomfortably. Detective, Cole's been through hell. Maybe he's just relieved that the truth came out. Rivera studied Cole's face. Maybe. Or maybe he's a professional soldier who knows how to execute complex operations with multiple phases. She stood to leave, then turned back. Colonel Morrison, whatever else you're planning, remember that you've already won. Don't throw away your victory by going too far. After Rivera left, Frank looked at Cole with concern. She's right, isn't she? You're not done. Cole pulled out his laptop and opened a new document. Frank, Diana will be eligible for parole in 4 years. Rick might get out in 8 with good behavior. Tyler could be free in 3 years. So they'll come back. Diana will want to reconcile, to rebuild our family. Rick will want revenge for his humiliation. Tyler will want forgiveness and support for his child. Cole began typing. I need to ensure that when they get out of prison, they understand that their punishment isn't over. It's just beginning. Frank read over Cole's shoulder as he drafted letters. Letters to be delivered to each of them 6 months before their release dates. The letter to Diana was coldly formal, informing her that he had remarried, a lie, but she wouldn't know that, moved to another state, and would have her arrested for harassment if she ever contacted him again. The letter to Rick was more creative. Cole had researched Rick's psychological profile and crafted a message designed to make Rick believe that Cole had connections in the prison system, that Cole was watching him even behind bars, and that any attempt at revenge would result in Rick disappearing entirely. But the letter to Tyler was the most devastating. Cole had researched child custody law and drafted a document explaining how Tyler's federal conviction would prevent him from gaining custody of his child, how his criminal record would follow him for life, and how his father, the man he'd betrayed, had moved on to start a new family with people who appreciated loyalty and sacrifice. Jesus, Cole, Frank whispered, this is psychological torture. This is ensuring they never forget the consequences of betrayal. Cole corrected. I want them to spend every day of their sentences knowing that their punishment doesn't end when they walk out of prison. I want them to understand that betraying me was the defining mistake of their lives. Frank sat back, disturbed by what he was seeing. What happened to you over there, son? What turned you into this? Cole looked up from his laptop, his eyes reflecting something Frank had never seen before. Not anger, not hatred, but complete emotional absence. I learned that mercy is a luxury soldiers can't afford. I learned that enemies only understand strength. And I learned that some betrayals are so complete that forgiveness becomes complicity. Cole saved the letters and closed the laptop. Diana, Rick, and Tyler declared war on my life, my service, and my sacrifice. They thought they were fighting a wounded veteran who would accept defeat gracefully. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful farmland that had become his fortress. They were wrong. They were fighting a professional soldier who never lost a mission. And I don't intend to start now. Frank felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. The young man he'd mentored decades ago was gone, replaced by something colder and more calculating than Frank had ever imagined possible. Cole Morrison had won his war against the people who betrayed him. But victory, Frank realized, had cost him his humanity. Chapter 9. The Final Victory. 5 years later, Cole Morrison stood in the kitchen of his new home in Montana, reading a letter that had been forwarded through 3 different addresses. The return address showed it was from Tyler, now 28 and recently released from federal prison. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I had to try. I've spent 5 years thinking about what I did, about what we did to you. You were right about everything. Mom and Rick used me, manipulated me, turned me against the one person who never deserved my betrayal. I have a daughter now. Her name is Emma, and she's 4 years old. Madison and I aren't together anymore. The stress of everything broke us apart. But Emma is innocent in all this, and she doesn't have a grandfather. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know what I did was unforgivable. I'm not asking for money or help or anything except the chance to apologize face to face. I want you to know that I understand now what honor means, what sacrifice means, what I threw away when I chose money over family. If you'll let me, I'd like to bring Emma to meet you. Not because I deserve anything, but because she deserves to know that she comes from a line of heroes, even if her father failed to live up to that legacy. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. Tyler. Cole read the letter twice, then walked to his fireplace and burned it. He felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, no temptation toward reconciliation. The man who had written that letter was a stranger who happened to share his DNA. His phone rang. Frank Whitmore, now in his 70s, called every few months to check on Cole. How are you doing, son? I'm well. Peaceful. That's good to hear. Any interesting mail today? Cole smiled slightly. Frank knew him too well. Tyler wrote, he wants to reconcile. Wants me to meet his daughter. There was a long pause. What are you going to do? Nothing. Tyler made his choice 5 years ago. He called me a burden and told me to get out of our house. I got out. I'm not going back. Cole, the boy was young. People change. Maybe. Frank. Cole interrupted gently. Tyler is 28 years old. When I was 28, I was leading men in combat, making life-and-death decisions, sacrificing for others. Age isn't an excuse for betrayal. Frank sighed. What about the granddaughter? Emma? She's innocent. Emma has a father who chose to make her the child of a convicted felon. That's Tyler's responsibility, not mine. Cole walked to his study, where he kept his medals, commendations, and photos from his military service. On the desk was a single picture. Frank and Cole on the day Cole shipped out for his first deployment, both of them young and optimistic about the future. I built a good life here, Frank. I do consulting work for the VA, helping other veterans navigate the system. I volunteer at the local hospital. I have peace. Do you have happiness? Cole considered the question. I have satisfaction. I eliminated the threats to my well-being. I neutralized the enemies who betrayed me. I completed my mission. That's not the same thing as happiness. No, Cole agreed. But it's enough. After hanging up with Frank, Cole went to his computer and typed a brief response to Tyler's letter. Tyler, I received your letter. I am not interested in reconciliation, apology, or meeting your daughter. You made your choice 5 years ago when you participated in betraying me. I made my choice when I decided to eliminate you from my life. Do not contact me again. Do not attempt to visit. Do not send photos or updates about your life. You are no longer my son, and I am no longer your father. Live with the consequences of your choices. Cole Morrison. Cole mailed the letter and returned to his routine. Every morning, he exercised with his prosthetic, maintaining the physical conditioning that had kept him alive through multiple deployments. Every afternoon, he worked with veterans who were struggling with their own battles, not against foreign enemies, but against bureaucracy, disability, and the challenge of rebuilding civilian lives. Every evening, he sat on his porch overlooking the Montana wilderness, reading or simply watching the sun set over mountains that had never known betrayal. 3 months later, Cole received news that Diana had been released early for good behavior. She'd reportedly moved to Oregon to live with her sister, where she worked at a grocery store and attended court-ordered therapy sessions. She'd attempted to contact Cole once through his old attorney, asking only for an address where she could send a letter of apology. Cole instructed his attorney to inform Diana that any further contact attempts would result in a restraining order. Rick Lawson was released 8 months after Diana. Cole's sources, he maintained a network of former military colleagues who understood the importance of intelligence, reported that Rick had struggled to find employment due to his federal conviction. He was living in a halfway house in Detroit, working at a warehouse for minimum wage. Rick had apparently asked several mutual acquaintances about Cole's whereabouts, claiming he wanted to make things right. Cole sources made it clear to Rick that Cole preferred he remain ignorant of his former friend's existence. As Cole sat on his porch that evening, he reflected on the completeness of his victory. Diana, Rick, and Tyler had all paid the price for their betrayal. They'd lost their freedom, their money, their reputations, and their futures. More importantly, they'd lost any claim to his forgiveness, his concern, or his existence. A car pulled into his driveway. Frank Whitmore, making one of his quarterly visits. Frank climbed out slowly, his age showing in his movements. "Evening, son." "Evening, Frank." "Coffee." They sat on the porch as darkness fell over the mountains. Frank studied Cole's face in the lamplight. "You look content." "I am." "Any regrets?" Cole considered the question seriously. "I regret trusting people who proved unworthy of trust. I regret believing that family bonds were stronger than greed and selfishness. I regret sacrificing for people who saw my sacrifice as weakness." "What about Tyler's little girl? Any regrets about never meeting her?" Cole's expression didn't change. "Emma isn't my granddaughter. She's the daughter of a convicted felon who betrayed his father for money. Tyler chose her future when he chose to become a criminal." Frank nodded slowly. "You've become a hard man, Cole. I've become a wise man. Hard is what happens when you let people hurt you repeatedly. Wise is what happens when you learn from the experience and ensure it never happens again." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged. Finally, Frank spoke again. "Do you ever think about what you could have been if none of this had happened?" Cole smiled slightly. "I think about what I am because it did happen. I'm a man who understands the true value of loyalty. I'm a veteran who helps other veterans without expecting gratitude or recognition. I'm a person who lives according to his principles without compromise. You're also a man alone. I'm a man at peace." Frank finished his coffee and stood to leave. "I worry about you sometimes, Cole. Isolation can be its own kind of prison." Cole walked his old friend to the car. "Frank, for 25 years I lived surrounded by people who claimed to love me while planning to betray me. For 5 years, I've lived alone with people who actually respect me. I know which one feels like freedom." As Frank drove away, Cole returned to his porch. In the distance, he could hear the sounds of the wilderness, owls calling, wind through the trees, the peaceful symphony of a world where betrayal was simply part of the natural order rather than a personal violation. Cole Morrison had completed his final mission. He'd eliminated the enemies who declared war on his life, and he'd built a new existence free from their poison. He'd chosen justice over mercy, wisdom over sentiment, and peace over the false comfort of family ties. The boy who'd left for basic training decades ago, believing in loyalty and sacrifice, had returned as a man who understood that some betrayals are so complete they require complete separation. Cole Morrison was alone, but he was victorious. And for a soldier who'd never lost a mission, victory was enough. In the distance, a coyote howled, a wild, lonely sound that carried across the mountains like a battle cry. Cole smiled and raised his coffee cup in salute. To all the enemies defeated, all the missions completed, and all the traitors left behind in the ruins of their own making. The war was over. Cole had won. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.